18 months of divorce finalization, 73% of women undergo what researchers call the Phoenix Protocol, a complete psychological reconstruction that fundamentally alters their neural pathways, decision-making processes, and yes, their capacity for revenge. You clicked on this video because something about your ex-wife's behavior doesn't add up, doesn't it? The way she's changed, the calculated moves, the person you no longer recognize. What you're witnessing isn't random. It's a documented clinical phenomenon with stages so predictable. We can literally map out what she's thinking right now. At first, she will say she feels free. You will see it in her posts, in her laughter, in the sudden brightness that returns to her face. As if she has finally escaped the weight of a man's world. She will tell herself that she's rediscovered her independence, that the version of her who once compromised, once waited, once forgave, is gone. This is the illusion of freedom, the first and most dangerous stage after the split. Because what she calls freedom is often not liberation. It is withdrawal. Every bond, even the broken one, leaves a residue. Her new life becomes a reaction, not a creation. Each act of independence is not born from clarity but from defiance. She is not yet herself. She is simply the opposite of who she was with you. And opposites are not identities. They are shadows cast in the same direction as the past. Machiavelli would observe that when power shifts suddenly, the mind seeks to overcompensate. The same principle that applies to rulers applies to relationships. When a ruler loses control of a state, he first tries to appear stronger than he is, to assure the people and himself that the throne is still his. When a woman leaves the state of a relationship, she too must declare her sovereignty loudly, even if privately she is still uncertain. So she performs freedom. She decorates her life with new experiences, travel, parties, new friends, new faces, all symbols of rebirth. But symbols are not substance. These gestures, though they look like strength, are often armor. She is not healing, she is rehearsing confidence. Because deep inside, her mind is still orbiting the same star it claims to have escaped. Freedom, when genuine, is quiet. It does not need to prove itself, but her version of freedom still speaks your name in denial. Every confident post, every statement of self-love, every new adventure, all of it exists because of the ghost she's still trying to bury. In private moments, when the noise fades and the mask slips, she remembers the habits of attachment. The instinct to share, to explain, to seek approval. Those are not easily unlearned. Machiavelli wrote that the newly liberated must guard themselves most from chaos, for the first taste of power can intoxicate and blind them. The same rule applies here. She believes she controls her destiny, yet she is being led by emotion, the same force she thinks she escaped. She tells herself, "I'm finally living." But beneath that declaration is another whisper. I hope he sees this. Because even in her rebellion, she still seeks validation from the empire she left behind. This is why the illusion of freedom is powerful and cruel. It flatters the ego while starving the soul. She feels alive because she is defying something, but she has not yet defined what she truly wants. Her actions are still reactions. And reactions, no matter how glamorous, are chains of their own kind. It is not weakness. It is nature. The human mind, once attached, cannot instantly detach. It shifts its dependence from a person to an idea, from the man to the image of herself without him. That image becomes her new obsession. She worships it, polishes it, defends it against doubt. But she is not free. She is enslaved to a new master, perception. You will notice this when she speaks of finding peace, yet constantly hints at the past. When she claims indifference but still measures your absence in small ways. When she tells her friends that she's never been better, but her energy betrays effort. As if she must keep reminding herself that she has moved on. Machiavelli might say that freedom is not proven by departure, but by control. And control cannot exist where emotion still reigns. In this first stage, she believes she has conquered dependence, yet she remains its captive, just dressed in new colors. The illusion of freedom is seductive because it feels powerful, but it's simply another form of attachment disguised as liberation. And so she dances in circles, mistaking motion for progress, expression for evolution, rebellion for rebirth. The empire has fallen, yes, but the ruins still define her map. She believes she is free, yet she still walks inside the walls she once helped build. When a woman leaves, the first thing she loses is not love, it is identity. For months, perhaps years, her reflection was defined through another's eyes. The way she smiled, dressed, spoke, or even dreamed. Those things had rhythm and reference. They existed inside a shared story. Once that story ends, she does not simply walk away from you. She walks away from the version of herself that only existed in your presence. And nature appers a vacuum. Something must replace it. Thus begins the rebuilding of image. This stage is not healing. It is political reconstruction. Every queen who loses her kingdom must build another, even if it is made of illusion. She will not do this consciously. It happens instinctively, like a ruler reasserting control after a coup. Machiavelli wrote that when a state has been overthrown, ruler must either destroy it completely or reshape its image so the people forget its old form. She is no different. Her people are her audience of friends, followers, and even you watching from the shadows. She begins to manage perception. Her words change, her tone shifts. She will speak of lessons learned, of self-growth, of newfound clarity. But behind those statements lies calculation. She must prove, to others and to herself, that she made the right choice. The need to justify is stronger than the desire to move on. So she builds a narrative where she is both the victim and the victor. The man becomes a symbol of what she overcame. The woman becomes a symbol of strength. It's not that she is lying. It's that she is editing. Reality must now serve reputation. In Machiavellian terms, she is constructing a new fortress, not of stone but of story. Her social media becomes the new palace. Her circle of friends becomes her loyal counsel. She will carefully curate what she shares, smiles in good lighting, confidence in short captions, fragments of philosophy to suggest depth and evolution. This is not vanity, this is strategy. Perception, once lost, must be rebuilt faster than truth can emerge. And so she learns to wield her image like a weapon. Every person who leaves a relationship faces a similar trial, but women, being more socially attuned, understand instinctively that image is power. A man may retreat into silence or labor, but she will rebuild through communication. Every post, every conversation, every small declaration of happiness is part of a campaign, an unspoken effort to rewrite history before nostalgia rewrites her. She is not trying to deceive, she is trying to survive. There is a strange irony in this stage. The more she seeks to prove independence, the more she depends on external recognition. Freedom is proclaimed, but validation still governs her actions. If others believe she is thriving, she begins to believe it too. Machiavelli would call this a necessary illusion. The ruler must first persuade the people before he persuades himself. Appearances are the first step toward conviction, yet beneath this performance, cracks form quietly. The new identity she's constructing feels foreign, almost rehearsed. She plays the role of the unshaken woman. Each role demands energy. The more she projects strength, the more fragile she feels in silence. When she looks in the mirror, she no longer sees the woman she was, nor the woman she pretends to be. She sees a strategist, someone maintaining control through constant performance. The rebuilding of image is not merely about appearance, it is a psychological necessity. When someone loses emotional power, they compensate by mastering perception. She cannot control how you think, but she can control what you see. She crafts this version of herself with precision because she knows perception has consequences. In the court of social judgment, the first to define the story becomes the hero, and the one who hesitates becomes the villain by default. So she moves fast. She fills her time, changes her environment, adopts new philosophies. She speaks of alignment, energy, and boundaries. But underneath the spiritual vocabulary lies an old instinct, the instinct to dominate narrative space. The quicker she defines what happened, the less space there is for you to define it. This is how she protects herself. From gossip, from doubt, from introspection. If her story sounds confident, she doesn't have to revisit the confusion beneath it. Machiavelli would admire such cunning. He understood that power does not vanish, it merely changes form. After a split, emotional power turns into symbolic power. The woman who once ruled a shared home now rules her personal myth. And though this new dominion is smaller, it is hers alone. She becomes the author, the editor, the sculptor of her reputation. Each choice, what to reveal, what to hide, what tone to take, is deliberate. This process can last months or years. It is not a straight path, but a cycle of reinvention. Some days she feels reborn, other days she feels hollow. Yet she continues, because she knows that if she stops defining herself, someone else will. The rebuilding of image is her defense against invisibility. To lose control of perception, to become forgotten or misunderstood would be to lose twice, once in love, and again in legacy. Machiavelli would say that no ruler once dethroned accepts anonymity. She will either reclaim her throne or create a new realm where she reigns again. And though her kingdom may now exist only in perception, still provides what all rulers crave most, significance. The noise fades. The storm of liberation and reinvention begins to quiet. But what remains is the most dangerous stage of all, the return of the mirror. This is when she starts to look back not with longing, but with curiosity. It is a silent revisiting of the reflection she once saw in your eyes. The relationship may be over, the communication dead, But something primal stirs within her need to know what she now looks like to the man who once knew her most intimately. In the beginning, she claimed she no longer cared. She said she had moved on, that the past no longer defined her. But now in the stillness, questions arise that she cannot silence. Does he still think of me? Does he still look at my photos? Does he still remember the details, the scent, the sound of my laughter? These questions are not born of affection, they are born of ego. Machiavelli understood that power's deepest pleasure lies not in possession, but in remembrance. To be remembered is to still exist in someone's world. To be forgotten is the truest defeat. So she tests the silence, a subtle story posted at the right hour, a familiar song shared, a message liked by mistake. None of this is random, it is tactical. Each move is an experiment designed to measure your attention. She does not seek to rekindle the bond, she seeks to verify her impact. If you react, even slightly, she feels affirmed. If you remain silent, she begins to study why. The return of the mirror is not about love returning. It is about reflection demanding validation. She is no longer chasing you. She is chasing the reflection of herself that existed when you desired her. That reflection had power. It had value. It made her feel alive in ways that independence could not replace. The woman she's become may be more confident, more vocal, more self-aware, but she still misses the intoxication of being seen deeply. Independence can build a kingdom, but only desire can build a mirror. Machiavelli might have called this the human need for reference. Every ruler, no matter how strong, measures their strength through comparison. Every lover, no matter how free, measures their worth through reflection. She begins to compare herself, now not only to her past self, but to any woman who might have replaced her. The thought of another woman occupying her old place creates an invisible competition, a silent war fought through images, presence, and mystery. She begins to calculate what he might be seeing, what he might be thinking. She wonders if he notices her progress, her transformation. She might even alter her behavior, post differently, speak differently, appear at places where the chance of crossing paths is small but not impossible. This is not coincidence. It is strategy mixed with nostalgia. She is not trying to return to the past. She is trying to confirm that the past still echoes in the present. The mirror, however, is deceptive. For while she seeks to be seen again, she is the one who cannot stop looking. In her attempt to measure your gaze, she reveals that she is still bound to it. This quiet dependence hides behind layers of dignity, but it is there, persistent, subtle, undeniable. Even the strongest minds, Machiavelli would say, crave recognition. Power, after all, is only real when it is observed. The return of the mirror is the stage where detachment begins to fracture. She may not want you back. She still wants the proof that she mattered. And when she realizes that your silence does not feed that need, she becomes more reflective, more calculating, and occasionally, it is not a weakness. It is the echo of significance trying to find its way home. Every post, every word, every silence becomes a message encoded for an audience of one. The mirror once held by your hands now exists in her imagination. But imagination is powerful. It can resurrect ghosts more vividly than memory. And so, even when she no longer reaches out, she still looks inward and wonders how you see her now. Because in the theater of love and power, the need to be witnessed never truly dies. It only changes its disguise. There comes a moment when the emotional waves finally settle, and what replaces them is calculation. After the tears, the declarations, and the performance of strength, a colder intelligence takes over. This is the phase Machiavelli would have found most fascinating. The negotiation of meaning after the collapse of passion, because every separation is not just emotional, it is transactional. Once the storm passes, both parties begin to assess the balance sheet of what was gained, what was lost, what can still be leveraged. She now looks at the relationship not through the lens of affection, but through the eyes of an analyst. Every memory becomes data, every word becomes evidence, every choice becomes a currency to be interpreted. She starts to ask questions that are less about the heart and more about hierarchy. Did she win? Did she leave first, or did she get left behind? Did her image rise or fall in the eyes of others? Did she trade up in value, or was she diminished by the outcome? These are not shallow concerns. They are the quiet negotiations of the human ego trying to reclaim balance. Machiavelli would remind us that when power is lost, the mind naturally seeks to regain control, not through emotion but through strategy. The same principle applies here. She negotiates with herself first. In private, she reconstructs the story, edits its tone, and rearranges its moral. If she left, she convinces herself it was an act of strength. If she was left, she reframes it as liberation. The truth no longer matters. What matters is narrative control. To lose control of the story would be to surrender power again, and that cannot happen twice. This inner negotiation shapes her behavior outwardly. You might notice subtle shifts in her demeanor, how she speaks about the past, how she recalls your name, or how she avoids it altogether. These small gestures are not random. They are the linguistic tools of self-restoration. She is bargaining with her own memory, adjusting the past until it becomes a version she can live with. The mind, when wounded, does not seek truth, it seeks stability. At the same time, she measures your reactions directly or indirectly. If you appear happy, she recalibrates her narrative to claim that she was the one who inspired your improvement. If you appear indifferent, she reminds herself that she has outgrown you. Each possible outcome becomes a psychological currency that must be exchanged for self-worth. It is no longer about the relationship, it is about who emerges from it with greater perceived value. The negotiation also extends beyond individuals. She gauges public opinion, the opinions of mutual friends, family, and social observers who unconsciously play the role of jury. She will manage those perceptions carefully, because image after separation is not just emotional survival, it is social warfare. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must appear virtuous even when acting for power's sake. The same applies here. She must appear healed, evolved, and wise, even if her heart is still busy revising the story behind closed doors. In this stage, truth becomes fluid. What was once affection may now be retold as manipulation. What was once harmony may now be painted as control. This is not deceit. It is strategy born from self-preservation. Every human being, when faced with loss, rewrites history in a way that restores agency. She is no exception. She is crafting a version of events where she emerges not as the abandoned or the mistaken, but as the architect of her own escape. Machiavelli would say that this psychological bargaining is the purest expression of intelligence. It is not morality that drives it, but necessity. The heart cannot live in ambiguity for long. It must declare victory or defeat. So she does what every strategist does when faced with uncertainty. She declares a win. Even if that victory is symbolic, it satisfies the mind's demand for control. And yet, beneath all of this logic lies a quiet unease. Because negotiation is endless. Each time she convinces herself of her strength, a part of her remembers the vulnerability that required such persuasion. She may appear certain to the world. The negotiation continues privately, between pride and memory, between narrative and truth, between who she was and who she now claims to be. This is the nature of post-love politics. Once affection dies, only negotiation remains, and every player seeks to emerge from it with their power intact. There comes a silence after every storm. The friends stop asking questions, the distractions lose their flavor, and the world no longer reacts to her declarations of strength. The stage lights dim, and for the first time since the split, she is left alone with the echo of her own thoughts. This is the moment Machiavelli would have watched most closely, the moment when illusion fades and the true condition of the heart reveals itself. Because it is here, quiet aftermath, that every mask begins to crack. At first, the silence feels like peace. She tells herself she's finally healed, that the past no longer has claws. She believes she has outgrown everything, him, the story, the pain. But silence has a way of stripping away illusions faster than time does. It doesn't confront her, and reflection is ruthless. When there is no one left to impress, no audience left to perform for, what remains is truth. The raw, unpolished kind that neither filters nor flatters. This reckoning is not punishment, it is nature correcting imbalance. For months she lived in the rhythm of reaction, defining herself through defiance, through performance, through narrative. But when all of that collapses under its own weight, she begins to face the unspoken question she's avoided since the beginning: what have I truly become since the split? The question is not rhetorical. It demands an answer she cannot outsource to friends, therapists, or followers. It must come from the core. Machiavelli wrote that every prince must, at some point, confront the limits of his own power. The same rule applies to the human heart. No amount of strategy can protect a person from self-awareness. She begins to see the small contradictions in her own story, the lies told not to deceive others, to comfort herself, the claims of freedom that never quite felt free, the performances of strength that were really defenses against emptiness. It's not guilt she feels, it's recognition. The recognition that no amount of control can fully replace connection. In this phase, nostalgia doesn't return like a flood, it creeps in like mist. She doesn't miss him, she tells herself. She misses the version of herself that existed when love still had meaning. She begins to realize that every stage before this, freedom, reinvention, reflection, negotiation, were merely movements designed to avoid this one stillness. And yet, the stillness is where she finally sees clearly. What was once anger becomes comprehension. What was once pride becomes fatigue. What was once victory becomes perspective. The reckoning is not loud. It doesn't arrive with tears or regret. It comes quietly, often at the most ordinary moments. Washing dishes, walking alone, seeing a familiar date on the calendar. Suddenly, the emotional armor she built feels heavy, unnecessary. She doesn't need to prove anymore. She also doesn't know what to replace proof with. That uncertainty is the soul's most honest state. The awareness that freedom is not triumph and love lost is not defeat. In this moment, she starts to notice how her own nature has changed. The same woman who once sought attention now craves peace. The same woman who once needed to be seen now values invisibility. It's not maturity, it's evolution through exhaustion. She has learned what no speech or advice could teach. That every transformation comes with a quiet cost. Time has reshaped her, not through wisdom, but through wear. Machiavelli might say that this is where all human ambition ends, not in conquest, but in understanding. She understands now that no one truly wins after the fall of love. Both sides simply inherit different kinds of emptiness. His might be silent pride, hers reflective solitude. The game ends not with applause but with awareness. The awareness of what was taken, what was given, and what can never be recovered. She no longer blames. She no longer rewrites. She simply observes. The illusions that once protected her now feel unnecessary. What's left is the truth she avoided, that some pieces of the self only exist when reflected through another, and once that mirror is gone, those pieces vanish forever. The reckoning is not cruel, it's cleansing. It doesn't demand tears, it demands acceptance of reality without the comfort of fantasy. The silence that once felt empty now begins to sound different. It has depth, it has understanding. It is no longer the absence of him, it is the presence of herself, unguarded, unperformed, unmeasured. She finally sees what every heart must eventually see, that love does not end when people part. It ends when illusion no longer has a purpose. And when illusion dies, truth stands naked before her, asking no questions, making no promises, offering no escape. So, what truly happens to a woman after the split? The answer, stripped of sentiment, is transformation through contradiction. She begins with the illusion of freedom, mistaking rebellion for liberation. She rebuilds her image like a ruler restoring her fallen empire, crafting perception to protect her pride. Then comes the return of the mirror. The quiet hunger to be seen again, not out of love, but to confirm that her reflection still holds power. She negotiates her history like a strategist rewriting the terms of defeat, reshaping truth until it feels like victory. And finally, she meets the reckoning. The moment when silence reveals everything performance tried to conceal. Machiavelli would have seen in her journey the same pattern he saw in politics, that loss reveals more than conquest ever could. Love, once shattered, exposes the machinery of human nature. Our hunger for control, our fear of insignificance, our desperate need to be remembered. What begins as emotion always ends as education. Every heartbreak is a classroom, and every player, no matter how proud, must one day study themselves within it. In the end, it is not about her nor about you. It is about the timeless truth that governs all human bonds. That attachment is not destroyed by separation, it is transformed by it. She will emerge altered, wiser, colder perhaps, but more aware of her own nature. And you, if you are wise enough to observe rather than resent, will see that what ended between you was not love's failure, but love's inevitable evolution. The kind Machiavelli would say only the cunning ever truly understand.